Hello and welcome to another My NT&D marriage video. Love is the question of the day. Can they fall in love? Do they feel love? Are they capable of feeling love? It would depend on who you ask, because some people would say hell no and others will say yes. Early in the piece, my partner was telling me that he loved me, and I used to say to him, how do you know? And what I really meant by that was, how do I know? Because he said it, but he didn't show it. He didn't compliment and flirt and show affection and have conversations, pillow talk and things of that nature. The typical things that people do to show love. And so he's not doing any of that. And then he's telling me that he loves me, and I'm thinking, really? I don't feel that love. I don't know what he's talking about. I was feeling love for him because I liked him as a person, and we had that physical attraction, and we had lots of sort of ethics and morals and things in common, so I did love him. And I would say it and show it and do all the things that I thought you're supposed to do when you love somebody. But he was far more distant, and I guess looking back I would say that he was showing love in a different kind of way, or maybe just more sporadically. So I've mentioned before, of course, in other videos, that a number of people sort of say that their partners who are on the spectrum don't celebrate their birthdays or anniversaries and things like this. He did. For my birthdays, he would give me usually jewellery. Really early on in the piece, I had said to him, I can't wear any other metal other than gold. Anything else will make my skin react. If I wear silver, I'll get a rash. Anything in my earrings will make the ears swell up. So he remembered that. And so for my birthday, he would give me a gold pair of earrings. The next year, a gold bracelet. The next year, a gold necklace and things like that. So he had remembered, I like gold. I can only wear gold. He buys me gold. I did forget to mention to him that I actually don't wear a lot of jewellery, but still it was nice of him to do that. And on the box it would usually say, I love you, written on the sort of the outside. And so the thought was there, the sentiment was there. For Valentine's he'd give chocolates and a teddy bear and the odd flowers and things like this. So he was showing signs of, I guess, normalcy. The things that he determined were normal. This is what you do. You give ladies flowers, chocolates, teddies, jewellery, that kind of thing. But in between all of those dates, there wasn't a lot going on by way of expressions of love, aside from him telling me, I love you. And then after a while, it's not necessarily that the neurotypical partners are to blame for the demise of their relationships. But there was a part that I was playing, and that is whenever I would confront him about, you know, a perceived failure, and I wouldn't word it like that, of course. You know, as I've mentioned before, I would say things like, how come we're not talking much? How come you don't compliment me? So I would be questioning, and he would see that as me outlining his failures. Oh, she's pointing out I'm not complimenting her, and she's pointing out that I'm failing as a partner to be whatever it is that partners are supposed to do. And so he starts to sort of then question his attraction to me And it doesn't need to make sense, because it kind of doesn't make sense in a kind of typical logical term. But me questioning then made him think, there's something wrong with you, meaning me, and I need to get rid of you and get a new girlfriend because you're too much drama. You've got too much issues. You keep pointing out these perceived failings, and you are a terrible girlfriend, and I want a better one. So from his perspective, he's starting to lose that sort of affection for me because I'm being too combative. Then when you get into the middle sort of years, when things started to get really bad and he's losing his temper all the time and things like that, I mean, there were definitely moments where I don't think either of us felt love. And maybe one of us did at one time where the other didn't and things like this, but there were definitely moments of us feeling just sheer aggro. No love, just almost a hatred for our relationship and our life, and both of us probably feeling trapped because we had children by then and a house and a mortgage and all of that. And yet, looking back, I can still see that the both of us kept trying to build what we felt was a good relationship. He's always celebrated my birthdays, even though we don't celebrate our anniversary. I don't think either of us have cared enough about it to celebrate. A family tradition of his has always been that when there's a special occasion, birthdays, Mother's Days, Father's Days, the family goes out to dinner. And he has brought that tradition to our relationship. So even in the middle years when things were kind of really sucky, we would still do things like that. Go out for birthdays. Sometimes it might be croissants and coffee in bed and things like this. So even when we weren't really getting along, we were still trying to make it work and show in our own way that we loved each other. And now looking back, I can see that his way of showing me love is to do things for me and for the family. So I suppose it would depend on your relationship, the nature of your relationship, their upbringing. I mean, there's so many different elements to potentially keeping love alive in a relationship. I definitely had the power and ability to destroy the relationship with my fault finding, and if I didn't word things right, I would have really made things more detrimental. And he certainly wasn't helping build the love with his anger and critiquing. But I think at the end of the day, he did and does feel love. He says that he loves me, and he's not lying, even though he's not showing me love in the way that I want. He's not lying. And there have been moments that I have driven him away with my combativeness. And of course it makes sense to me. He comes along and starts telling me everything I do is the wrong way to do it. And I then confront him, and he sees that as combative, and that doesn't appeal to him. He's watching me thinking, you're annoying. I don't like you very much. You won't do this the way that I want. You won't do that the way that I want. You're a really annoying person. So I sort of see where he's coming from, whether it makes sense to me or not. But at the same time, I also see where I'm coming from, because I'm going to stand up for myself. But the point I'm getting at is the nature of the relationship, him being him and me being me, Yes, I'm definitely not being him. We had the power to wreck and destroy the relationship, and there were moments where even me just being normal and standing up for myself were ruining the relationship because he didn't want me to. You know, he kind of wanted it just to go his way and flow. So yeah, I think love it's a really hard thing to pinpoint with these people, considering that they'll usually show it through acts of service. So he loves me, he does his acts of service, he says that he loves me, but do I feel loved? That's a whole nother ball game. There's kind of a part of me that sort of does, like I get that he's working hard to make the marriage work, he's working hard to try and keep me happy. You know, he's heard that I like gold, and so he's doing the gold and things like that. So, you know, I'm trying to sort of, I suppose now, receive the love in the way that he gives it. And it's not necessarily filling the love tank. But I guess in my case, he does. And there's another interesting thing that I've noted with these people on the spectrum, is they're kind of like out of sight, out of mind. I would assume that my ASD son loves me. He doesn't really say things like, love you mum, or anything like that. On occasion he'll give me a hug if I need one, or I give him a hug if he needs one. But he has said himself that when he moves out of home, he doesn't anticipate that he would make a lot of effort to keep in contact with us. And that does not surprise me, because that seems to be a common trait between them. Just something that they do. And so when in situations my husband and I had split up, he was so quick to turn very cold, very distant. It was almost like he could just flick a switch that was like, we're not in a relationship anymore, so I'm no longer going to do any of the things that I perceive as showing love. And so then he'd just kind of get distant and moody and a bit aggro and hard to tolerate actually, but you know, then we'd work it out, go to a counsellor or something, get back together, and he'd just be right back in there. Like, you know, he was never cold and distant all of that time that we were separated. And interestingly enough, he did discuss with me recently that the last time that we were separated, and sorry, the second last time, there's so many, hard to keep your track of. The time that we were separated the longest, he had said to me that there were times where he'd shed tears because he was sad that he was losing the relationship. And he didn't express that at the time or do anything about it, but he has expressed it since, that that was what was going on for him. So that's definitely a sign of love to some degree. You don't cry over somebody you don't care about. So yeah, I think that they do love in a different way than we are sort of accepting. But that's not to say that all relationships, neurotypical or neurodiverse, have love in them, because you can, even as a neurotypical partner, drive somebody away. It's, you know, a little bit too easy to do. And so yeah, I just think that in some cases we can and have caused our partners to grow more distant. And we wouldn't have done it deliberately. Not a lot of things we do are deliberate. And it might have just been their combativeness and their PDA and all of that sort of stuff that made them run when you were just trying to make a stand for yourself and try to remedy and fix your relationship. And instead of doing that, it went pear-shaped and they ran a mile, because it would depend on their way of coping with any kind of criticism. And from what I've seen, they're not particularly good at coping with any kind of criticism. And I think that that's because they don't know how to remedy it. You can say, why aren't we talking more? And their head just explodes. They're like, oh my God, not another thing that I have to do or figure out or learn or work out or something in this life where I'm already struggling to do everything that everybody else does. So yeah, I think in some cases we can burn them out, we can make them run, we can make them stop loving us, whether we meant to or not. And there are obviously things that they would be doing that make us stop loving them as well. In my case, I guess I'm lucky. That's so funny. Anyway, because we still kind of do love each other in our own way. And even though it's not, and this is why I'm laughing, it's not, like I said, it doesn't fill the love tank, it's not fulfilling. I don't really feel necessarily loved and cherished and valued in a way that I would like to be loved and cherished and valued. I know at the end of the day, he does care. He knows at the end of the day, I care. We're both fighting to try and keep this relationship alive. And so I guess in our case, he is capable of love. He is capable of loving me and he's capable of loving children. So over to you. How is it rolling for you in your case? Do you feel that your partner loves you? Do you think that he did at the start, or she at the start, and then things happened and they just grew more distant because they didn't know how to handle the relationship? Have you yourself fallen out of love? That's definitely probably a typical response in these situations. Anyway, over to you. Drop a comment below. Love to hear from you. And thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really do appreciate it.